I was 19 years old at the time. I had a really good opportunity to go to college, but things fell through a couple of months into it, and basically, I wasn't allowed to go back at that college. I'm not going to go into the details, but I found myself stuck. I was living at home with my parents and working at McDonald's most of the time. I was really disappointed in myself, especially because I didn't have anyone else to blame but myself. I seemed to be your typical college dropout that ended up working at fast food. But while I was working there, I had a couple of really strange experiences. So the first one happened like this. There was this really creepy customer. He was an old man, and he just seemed like the most insane individual ever. You just have to think of the physical embodiment of Florida man. He always wore this bathroom robe with a stained white t-shirt underneath. Or shoes. He had these really old Nikes that seemed like they had been completely covered in mud and never washed. Everywhere he stepped, there was some residue coming off of his shoes. I don't know how far he lived, but this guy came in to eat at McDonald's 4 or 5 times a day for as long as I worked there. I never personally had any horrible experiences with him. It wasn't like he was this unruly customer. He always asked for extra ketchup, but it's not like that was a crime or anything. The story is weird because I remember talking about him with some of my coworkers. I had one friend there that I became rather close with. I remember talking with her about this creepy guy that had just came in to eat McDonald's all the time wearing his pajamas. When you work with the public, there are so many people and faces that you see all the time, and none of them mean anything. It's just another customer. But when you have someone like this, it almost makes the job a little bit more bearable. As weird as that might sound, a little bit more consistency to the job. Plus, making jokes about someone like that was kind of fun. But there was one day when the jokes weren't funny anymore, because he stopped coming in. They couldn't find out why either. I mean, when you see someone multiple times a day, every day for months on end, you get a little surprised when they stop showing up. It all just seemed, I don't know, unusual. I remember talking to my friend about it. Neither of us could imagine why he stopped. I remember getting a phone call at 2 a.m. that night, though. I guess my friend had gotten curious and looked around online. She's a bit of an insomniac. I guess he had been arrested on multiple drug charges. She had found a picture of him in the public database for our county's police department. In the mugshot, he was wearing that exact same bathrobe that we always saw him wearing. That was interesting. Really weird to think that someone I saw and interacted with multiple times a day was an actual dealer. But I guess that was that. My other experience working at McDonald's was really bad. Not going to lie to you, it really freaks me out and really made me question humanity. So it happened like this, right? I was working the graveyard shift. It must have been around 12 a.m. and we didn't have any customers. We already cleaned all the machines as much as we could, and there really wasn't anything to do. We lived in a smaller community, so there weren't too many people coming in to eat at such a late hour. We had a few here and there, but we were mostly just sitting around, particularly slow this night. I remember going over to check the garbage cans for the other side of the store. Occasionally, we would forget to empty that garbage pail. It was directly behind a booth and out of sight from the area we normally worked in. I remember going over there, and there were 2 big bags of garbage that needed to be taken out. They were too heavy to take out at the same time, so I did what any sane person would do. I carried one out at a time. I remember bringing the first one. I threw it into the dumpster, and I remember hurting my back a little when I did it. I went for a little bit of a theatrical throw and really felt it there. I went back into the store to get the second bag of garbage, and I made my way outside. I got about 10 feet away from the dumpster when I saw something that shocked me. I dropped the bag of garbage. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was a mutilated puppy. I wasn't sure if it was alive or not. It wasn't moving or anything. I took a step closer to try to see a little bit more, and I just felt my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen in person. It was definitely dead. It wasn't leaning up against the dumpster, and it was just a horrifying thing to see. I ran back inside and asked my coworkers what we should do. We decided to call the police, but they didn't really help much. We were really freaked out at who could have possibly done this and why they would put the puppy there of all places. The part that still freaks me out is that whoever had done this had been waiting for me to go back inside of the building, and in the few seconds before I came back out, put it right next to the dumpster. I figured they must have been watching me. Didn't know what else to think about it though. Our McDonald's didn't have an outside camera other than the drive-thru, so there was no hope of trying to identify the person that did this. But it still makes me sick to my stomach to think what that person could be like.
If you really like my content and want to support me, please like this video and click the subscribe button. It helps me to grow my channel and is essential in reaching a wider audience. Most of you watching my videos aren't subscribed to my channel, and that's why my animations can't reach their full potential. They aren't recommended to more people who would surely love my content as much as you do. You can always unsubscribe at any moment. Thank you in advance, and enjoy the rest of the video.
So at the time, I was a 16-year-old female working in McDonald's. Now, at the McDonald's I worked at, when you're on headset, you're normally required to be at the first window to also take payment. My job position was customer care manager at the time, so my job was meant to be on the front desk, but 99% of the time they required me behind the tills. So I was having a normal day, working a long shift, but still having a normal working day. I happened to be on headset and first window that day. Anyway, my headset buzzes letting me know there's someone at my drive-thru lane. I go through to the first window to answer my customer, and this is how the conversation ensued. Me. Hello, welcome to McDonald's, what can I get you? Him.
Oh wow, you've got a beautiful voice.
His voice was very grunty and husky sounding, not off-putting though. We have all sorts of customers come through McDonald's every day, so nothing gave me the creeps at this point, but his voice was very recognizable. Thank you, sir, how very flattering. What can I get you?
I haven't decided yet. Can I just come around to the first window to decide? I want to see who I'm talking to.
Now, we weren't very busy, and at this point the creeper hadn't actually creeped me out yet. I mean, all he had done really was pay me a compliment, and we quite often had people complain that they liked the face-to-face contact. So it was definitely not unusual to get a request like this. Yes sir, that's fine.
Wow, you're just as beautiful as you sound.
Thank you sir, have you decided what you're going to have to eat?
Are you an option?
I laughed this off. It was my first job and I wasn't the rude kind of person when someone was paying a compliment. I must also point out that this man must have been around in his 60s. I remember that he had one lazy eye that looked to the left, painfully awful teeth, and patchy dark brown hair. At this point, I was getting a little bit uncomfortable now, but was still more than willing to take his order.
I'll have a cheeseburger.
Okay sir, are you paying cash or card? Without answering my question, he started asking where I'm from and how old I was, etc., etc. But it wasn't until his last few questions that I really got weirded out now.
What time do you finish work?
7:30, why? I didn't actually finish at 7:30, but 7:30 was the first number that came into my head when I blurted it out. I finished at 8 and would probably do some overtime as well, but I wasn't about to let him know that.
You know, I can meet you if you want. I can pick you up outside and we can go somewhere.
All the while he's saying this, he has this horrendous grin on his face and keeps winking at me. I'm really sorry, sir, but I'm not allowed to meet with customers outside of work, as it's against our employee policy. This was utter BS, but I needed to get him to leave me alone, and this was the only thing I could think of to say at the time. He carries on being insistent, but not getting the picture. I cut the conversation short. Anyway, sir, sorry to be rude, but can I have the money for your cheeseburger?
Yes, sorry. See you at 7:30.
Off he drove to the next window. I was gobsmacked. I'd already said I wasn't going to see him. I was a little bit shocked, but I was not going to go over there and give him the satisfaction of talking to him again. My coworker came to me and said, "Ooh, that guy had a major crush on you and wanted your number, but I didn't give it to him. He's old enough to be your dad." Anyway, I explained exactly what had happened and how uncomfortable it made me. 7:30 came and my coworker is spooked. Creeper is waiting in the car park for me, just like he said he would. He sat halfway down the car park and you can just see him staring in. Now, our car park wasn't very big. It only had 4 rows of parking spaces, so he wasn't that far away and would have clocked me the minute I walked out the door. At this point, I'm really freaking out and head to the back of the store where hopefully he can't see me. I had to stay at the back of the store for about 40 minutes before we knew it was safe to come out. Fast forward a week later, and the creepers return to the drive-thru. And guess who's back on headset at window 1? Me. I heard his voice and recognized it straight away.
Hey, I was hoping I'd hear your voice again. Why didn't you meet me the other day?
Just 1 second, sir. I'll be with you in 1 second. I immediately handed my headset to my manager and gave him a quick briefing on the situation. He gladly took the headset and dealt with the customer from start to finish. When my manager came back to let me know he had gone, he said the creeper had been asking my name, my address, and my surname. My manager said that he was the most creepiest guy he had ever met, and I was never to have anything to do with him again. If he came to work while I was there, afterwards my manager would have me head to the back room while he dealt with the creep. He always asked about me, every single time. I'm a 16-year-old female working as a customer care manager on the front of house for our McDonald's. Now, where I am, from when you are front of house, you're required to wear a light stripped top, a yellow neck scarf, and a pencil skirt just below the knee which has a small split up the back. I always button my shirt right up to the very top, so I always looked very modest, and I would never say a McDonald's uniform is attractive. Anyway, when I worked at McDonald's, I always put my all into everything I did, so I knew tills, drive-thru, drinks, serving, etc. I've also always been someone that will happily have a conversation with someone to make their experience enjoyable, and hopefully make them want to come back. I was working on tills when this creeper came through the door. He was a tall blonde bodybuilder, at least around 50 years old though. He came to the till and ordered and didn't look very happy, so I asked the obvious questions. How was your day, etc. He had made small talk and we got to chatting about both of our days. After that, he then tells me,
It's nice to see someone smile around here for once. Everyone else is so grumpy.
Nice enough compliment. I was used to it. He was right though. Not many people here enjoyed this job, but, I mean, it is McDonald's. He starts coming in around once a week on a Wednesday morning. Each morning he would come in, we would have a chat. If I was on the floor, meaning front of house, we would sit and chat at a table. And my managers were fine with this, as they knew it made each customer's experience unique. We got to know each other's names. His name was Michael. I started college on a Wednesday and Thursday and worked at McDonald's part-time. So my shifts changed. I worked Mondays, Tuesdays, and Saturdays instead of Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And sometimes extra days if they needed me. Michael started coming into McDonald's every day to find when I was working. First red flag, but I figured he was just lonely and needs someone to talk to. Anyway, he worked out my shift pattern and came in on Tuesdays instead, after asking me why I wasn't in on Wednesdays because he missed our chats. He'd do this thing where he'd let someone else go in front of him if it meant that he could come to my till instead. He would wait to one side to get served by me. Odd, but I didn't think too much of it, just thought he was a man that liked to be served by someone with a smile and had taken a liking to me. Again, we chatted when he came in. Now, this is where it got a bit more weird. We were sat down talking and he decided to really open up to me. He told me how him and his wife were going through a messy divorce. He started going into details of why. He told me he had punched his son. Now, this guy was big, like he looked like a bodybuilder. I can't remember exactly what had happened, but he had ended up smacking his wife too, I think. And here he was telling me all about it. I mean, I'm no counselor. After proceeding to tell me how big his house was, probably to try and grip my attention, he started telling me how he was living in the basement of the house that he owned and it wasn't fair.
I'm going to hit her again if this carries on.
Well, apparently the wife and son wanted him out and they were going to have it and not pay him for it, blah blah blah. He wasn't letting that happen. His son won't talk to him, blah blah blah. He then started asking me for advice. Again, a 16-year-old girl. I didn't really know what to say, so I just sort of said, well, everything happens for a reason, I suppose. And as I went to get up, he asked me to sit back down. Now, I had already been sat there for near on half an hour, and I know I said my managers don't mind, but that's pushing it a bit. So I told him I really had to go. He carried on trying to get me to sit back down, but let me go in the end. Now, this may seem totally unrelated, but trust me, it will make sense later on. You know how in McDonald's we have the sauce pumps, right? Well, they're connected to a big bag of sauce which has a popper on the top of it. You basically pop the tube into the popper of the bag. But Jesus Christ, this thing is fiddly. It can take me about 10 minutes just to get it connected, then to put the heavy bag in the holder on the side is another 5 minutes. It's a nightmare. Now back to the story. The sauce had run out and I had to fiddle about getting it in. Where the sauce dispenser is right opposite from where Michael always sits. I could feel his eyes burning into my back as I did this, and anytime I turned around he would always be looking at me with a smile. It made me feel a fair bit uncomfortable, but hey ho, it's my job and you deal with this stuff all the time. Trust me, he's not the first person I've had perving at my bum. He came back a few more times and each time he did I felt more and more uneasy. He started being a bit more personal now, telling me he thought I was a pretty young girl and we should meet up for coffee at some point, and I politely declined. Michael then said this.
Can I ask you something personal?
Depends what it is. I can't really promise I'll answer.
Are you a virgin?
I'm not answering that.
What size are your boobs?
I have a boyfriend and I'm not very comfortable answering these kinds of questions.
Do you love your boyfriend? Would you leave your boyfriend for me?
My boyfriend is behind the counter and I don't think he'll be very happy with you asking questions like that.
Well, just make sure he treats you right. You're a lovely girl.
Anyway, I won't be coming back here for quite a while, so can I have your number? No, I don't think my boyfriend would be happy with that either. After that, I go to the back room to calm myself, as this was very unnerving for me. He was an older guy being very strange and asking super inappropriate questions of me. He knew my age as I had told him previously. The day continued. He had left and I continued and went home. When I woke up the next morning, I had a message on WhatsApp, a message on Facebook, and a friend request on there, and an Instagram follow as well. It was Michael. I don't know how, but he had found all of my personal accounts just through my first name. The only way I can think of him finding it out is asking a colleague what my surname is and getting my number out of one of them. Maybe he was friendly with one of my other workers and got my number from them. I don't know. He had sent me a message saying how he needed to see more of my pictures, but he saw my main pictures for them and my WhatsApp photo. He had also sent me another message about how he loved looking at my butt when I was bent over crawling on the floor to fix the sauce bags, and saying all the things he would love to do to me. At that point I noped out and I blocked him on everything. I still sometimes get messages from other accounts he has made, wishing me a Merry Christmas, etc. Even though he should have gotten the gist of me not wanting to talk to him. Luckily for me, I moved away about a week or so after that happened. Thank God. So I worked in a McDonald's in the UK, and the area my McDonald's is located isn't the best. There's a lot of druggies, alcoholics, and just overall idiots who cause trouble. I'm usually pretty good at fending for myself and shaking things off, but this encounter really freaked me out. So it was a couple of weeks ago and I was working on the drive-thru window where you collect your food. It's not uncommon for guys to make sexual comments or innuendos when they come through the drive-thru because they don't really have to face any consequences. However, this one guy came through the drive-thru and commented on my beautiful BJ lips, and he then asked me to meet him out back to put them to good use. I declined in the politest way I could manage and told him to move along as he was holding up the queue of cars. He then moved and I thought that was the end of that whole ordeal. 5 minutes later, the same dude comes around again and makes even more sexual comments about me, my hair, and all the creepy things he'd like to do to me. They were quite creepy and very disgusting. They were mostly about the things he'd do to me. I was shocked and quite visibly sickened, so he drove off and I told my manager that I felt uncomfortable by this customer, and I asked to be moved to a different station in case he came back around. Well, apparently he did, because the boy who switched stations with me also had an encounter with this guy. He was asked where I was, what my name is, if this guy would give him my phone number, and if he knew where I lived and what time I finished. The boy thankfully only told him my name and that I had moved on to the front counter, but that was before he realized this guy was a total freak and decided not to say anything more. Now, this is where the story gets really weird for me. The creepy guy came into the store and came up to the till that I was stationed on. He made similar remarks about what he wanted to do to me if he were to ever get his hands on me. He didn't stop until other customers interrupted him and told him to back off and walk away because I was getting really upset and shaken. He wouldn't leave, so I tried to walk away, which is when this guy tried to jump over the counter to try to get to my side of the store. Luckily, my managers and a few other staff members grabbed a hold of him and stopped him getting near me, but that didn't stop him from fighting back and still trying to touch me and get near me. At one point, he was even clawing at my coworkers with his long, nasty nails. Other members of staff alerted the staff safe, a sort of panic button that connects us right to the police, who are then sent right away. Fortunately, because I work in a very rough area, police patrol very closely to where I work, so they managed to get to the store pretty quick. They detained the guy and found a few knives stashed all over his body. Army knives, pocket knives, and even just small regular kitchen knives. As they were dragging him away, he continued to scream about how he was going to wait outside the store for me every day and that we belonged together, and just screaming all of the rantings of a madman. My manager sent me home in a taxi, and I've never seen this guy, his car, or anything else of his ever again, which I thank my lucky stars for. Number 4. This happened about 18 months ago. I lived alone when I was 19, and one night I decided to walk down to McDonald's like I do on occasion. I lived about 1 kilometer from McDonald's. It was a bit of a sketchy area, a lot of people roaming the streets and a lot of addicts and criminals. I started walking and saw 2 guys probably around my age on the other side of the street. In this situation, it's important to note that my house and McDonald's were on the same main street, opposite tree-dense campsites on the beach. I could feel their eyes as I walked past, but I didn't look up. They crossed the road and started walking behind me. They were close enough for me to hear them laughing and whistling. They waited at the corner as I went into McDonald's, and I could see them watching. I left McDonald's through the back door, walked straight up the side street, and around 3 blocks before I braved going back through the main road. I came out in front of them, and again, they started following me. They were steadily gaining on me. I walked as fast as I could without running because I knew they would catch up to me. I came to a corner with a 7-Eleven and turned in. As soon as I was out of their sight, I ran straight behind the store and hid between a dumpster and a bush. I just stayed there for around 20 to 25 minutes. I slowly emerged and went up to the next side street. I followed that street down until I came to a few more shops behind the main street. They were standing under a post light directly in my way. I then froze and walked backwards slowly and carefully, trying not to be seen or heard. Again, I ran around another side street and ended up looping around my house and jumping my back fence. After that, plus a couple of other similar experiences, I have serious anxiety about leaving the house by myself. I don't think I'm going to be doing that anymore. Number 5. This all literally just happened within the past hour. I got out of work at 6:30 p.m. and went to McDonald's to get an iced coffee. I pull up to the drive-thru and there's a red truck in front of me with a cap on the bed. It's super wide so I can't see their mirrors and thus can't get a glimpse of who is inside. I'm minding my own business listening to Unsolved Mysteries on YouTube when I see that the red truck has pulled up to the second pickup window. You know, there's the window where you pay and then the 2 separate windows where you pick up your food. I didn't think anything of it and just assumed they had a big order, and the McDonald's employee asked them to pull up so that I could get my iced coffee. I look up to see the truck's reverse lights come on. Okay, They must have pulled up a little too far and are backing up a little. They keep backing up without signaling to me that they're backing up. I slowly back up as well, and luckily no one's behind me. They keep backing up until they're finally parked at the first pickup window now. The McDonald's employee looks out the window at me, shrugs, and gives me a look like, I don't know why they did that. A few minutes go by. At this point, I'm just thinking about how strange it is and not part of common etiquette it was to back up without signaling to anyone you needed to do so. They could have easily hit me had I not been looking straight ahead, curious as to what they were doing. Now 5 minutes goes by. No one is being given any food. I just want my iced coffee, so I'm kind of annoyed that they backed up, thinking maybe they were told to go to the second window since I only needed the iced coffee. But they suddenly felt like refusing to do so would get McDonald's to get them their food faster, and thus they backed up to the first pickup window. I don't know. Anyways, I continue to sit there and wait for my food when I see the passenger door to the truck open. Out comes an older man who looks to be around 65 to 70 years old. He was wearing light khaki covered overalls and a dirty white t-shirt. He starts walking slowly over to my car. I'm thinking, maybe he's going to apologize to me for not signaling that they needed to back up. He gets to my passenger door window, turns so he's facing the window head on, and then just stares at me. I'm waiting for him to signal me to put my window down, thinking he had something to say. Well, he doesn't do anything. He just stands there and stares at me. He starts to lift his hand towards the door handle. I quickly lock the door. He scowls and walks back to the truck and gets back into the passenger side. They immediately drive away the second he closes his door. They didn't get any food. They didn't get anything. They just left. I pull up to the drive-thru to finally get my iced coffee, and it's been well over 10 minutes at this point, but I finally head home. At this point, I have more questions than answers now. Why did they back up without signaling? Why did they need to back up at all? And why did he get out of his truck? Why was he about to open my door? Why didn't he say anything? Why didn't they get their food or drinks? It might not be the creepiest thing to have happened, but this whole ordeal made me so anxious that I was shaking the whole ride home. I just wish I had some kind of insight or understanding to exactly what happened here. Definitely my most creepiest experience while at McDonald's, and I really hope I don't have another one. Number 6. This happened last month, but I totally forgot about it until I read the recent story about the old creep who backed his truck up in the drive-thru while the OP was waiting to get a coffee, then got out and made to get into her car. My story isn't anywhere near as creepy, but still pretty creepy to me. Anyway, my daughter and I went to the drive-thru for a late-night snack. As I was ordering, this guy ran out from the side of the building and jumped in front of my car. My little Yorkie Obi, who was sitting in my lap, didn't like that at all. Normally he likes everyone, but why would he be friendly to some strange guy who was taking exaggerated movie slasher stomps towards my car? I stopped ordering our food while Obi went nuts, and I was alternating staring at this guy while glancing around to see if I had a quick exit in case the guy made a run for my car. The guy kept stomping forward, but now he started barking in a deep threatening voice like a large dog and staring straight at Obi. I was afraid Obi was going to jump out the window to attack, but my hands were frozen on the wheel. Then I got pissed. He was scaring my daughter and me and freaking my dog out. I had a sudden crazy thought to just gun it and run this idiot down. "Move, you idiot! Your barking ass is standing between me and my quarter pounder." Of course, I never would have done that, but I almost reversed and drove off. Suddenly, he stopped barking and ran off the way he came. The whole thing only took about 30 seconds, but I was pretty shaken and jittery the whole drive home. My daughter thought it was funny, but not me. Maybe he meant it as a joke, but I certainly wasn't amused.
This happened around 2006, when I was 11 years old. My cousin Aaron was spending the week with my sister and I over summer vacation. At some point during the week, my mom decided to take us all to McDonald's. We ordered and took our food to the back of the McDonald's to sit at a table connected to one of those super long booths along the wall nearest to the bathrooms. Sitting on the same booth, but a few tables down, was an older man sitting by himself. He was probably in his 60s, a bit overweight, balding, and had huge lens 80s style glasses on. He was wearing a dirty t-shirt with gray sweatpants. When we first walked in, I noticed him, but he kept his head down and didn't seem to pay any attention to us, so I kind of blew him off and almost forgot that he was there. My mom had my brother in his car seat by the table and was feeding him french fries. He must have either choked or got sick because he started throwing up all over the place. My mom grabbed him and rushed into the bathroom with him, followed by my sister to help. Aaron and I were left alone at the table. All of a sudden, the old dude looks over at us and starts trying to have a conversation with us. It started with the casual, "Hey, how are you guys doing?" And then he said something about hoping my brother was okay. So we politely responded, thinking that's all that he wanted to say. But then he immediately started getting weird. He asked our ages, which we told him. And then he started asking our names and where our moms worked. So, being kids, we told him that also. The man then looked down at his phone and said that our mom had just texted him saying they would be a while in the bathroom and that he was supposed to bring us home because it was getting late. Although I knew my mom had never even talked to this man once. So, even as a kid, I knew something was off. The man then grabbed our hands and said we should hurry. At this point, we were practically being dragged outside. We got outside, and this man started leading us into an old, run-down white van. He opened the back door and said that we could stay in there for the ride. Luckily, just then, some younger guy had spotted us and instantly went over and told the manager what was going on. As this was happening, my mom and my sister also came out of the bathroom, saw what was going on, and screamed while running outside to us. At this point, we hadn't gotten in the van yet, but the man was trying to push us in. Now hearing my mom's screams, I instantly started pushing back, trying to keep myself from entering. The guy quickly gives up as the manager and my mother are fast approaching. The guy gets in the driver's seat and steps on it with his back door still open. My mom was still yelling at us, and we started crying. We didn't know what to think. To this day, this experience still horrifies me. I don't know why me and my cousin were stupid enough to go along with what this guy was saying, but I'm just glad my mom showed up when she did.